Next item on the agenda is an update on trialogue, and it's the trialogue regarding the acquisition and possessions of weapons, and I know that a lot of people are interested in this. Yes. So if you are not staying for this, please could you leave quietly? Thank you very much. Vivi, shall I say we've got another Shadows meeting tomorrow, or is that no? Today. Shall I say that? Please, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not staying for this item, could you leave the room? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the update on trialogues and events, which we do in this committee each month to make sure that there is a public update of the discussions that have happened in trialogues. It is not unusual to do this. The update is on the report on the proposal for a directive on control and acquisition of firearms. And I am the rapporteur. This is the update of the directive that has been in place since 1991. So this is quite a detailed update, so please do bear with me, but there's a lot of information to give. The third trialogue on the Firearms Directive took place on the 15th of November, and the fourth trialogue is agreed for the 5th of December. There is a great deal of similarity between the positions of the Council and the Parliament, and the Parliament is demanding that our key positions are met. Firstly, regarding sport shooters, the Council and Parliament's text both agree that certain semi-automatic firearms, when fitted with high-capacity magazines, are to be treated as Category A prohibited firearms, but with special permissions for sport shooters. There is agreement between the Council, the Parliament and the Commission that the exemption for sports shooters must work not just on paper but also in practice. And if people have concerns about the specifications of that exemption, they should pass them on to Monsieur Brunet, who's the Director of DG GROW at the Commission, who's also looking into the technical aspects. We want to make sure that this exemption works. The Parliament is pressing hard for this, and we are making progress. Regarding Annex, and especially A7, both the European Parliament and the Council have firmly rejected the Commission's original language on resemblance. The Parliament will not accept prohibiting items based merely on what they look like and not what they are. Further discussion is required on the issue of semi-automatics converted into automatics, since the Commission have said that they are not prepared to accept responsibility for technical specifications on conversions of automatics to semi-automatics, and the Council also rejects the suggestion of further technical specifications in that area. However, the Parliament have restated our desire to find a solution that is workable for the responsible legal shooting community. And there is support from the Council for grandfathering to ensure that existing legal owners can continue to hold the firearms that were previously in B6. And also the EP is pressing for an agreement so that these firearms can continue to be transferred, inherited and sold. So existing holders of category B6 to get grandfathering rights. There is agreement on that. Regarding deactivated firearms, it is important that deactivation should be irreversible and ensure that a firearm is inoperable. The European Deactivation Regulation introduced in April this year sets a standard for deactivation, but has raised many practical issues for legitimate holders of these items, including reenactors. There is now a clearer understanding by the Council and the Commission of the issues faced by such legitimate holders of these items, and progress is being made in the technical working groups on resolving implementing issues of the deactivation regulation. We are insisting that there is a declaration that the expert working group on the deactivation regulation must complete their work by early 2017. Regarding deactivations that took place before April 2016, the Parliament position is that where firearms were deactivated to an equivalent previous standard, they should still be able to be bought and sold. And we, the Parliament, have suggested that national deactivation standards, which are equivalent to the aims of the new EU standards, should be recognised as such. The Commission have now taken this concern on board, and we are working on new language to enable this. However, it is clear that the Commission will not be prepared to just rubber stamp all old deactivation standards. Member States will need to make the specific case for the deactivation standards and that they had in place before, and to make the case for deactivations undertaken according to their previous standards, and then the Commission will be able to approve on a case-by-case basis. Regarding authorisations, we are making good progress on agreeing language for special authorisations for reservists and other specialist needs, and taking into account certain different member states across Europe and the way they run their reserves. We're making good progress on agreeing language, although it is not yet finalised. The Parliament is also pressing for its language for member states to have a monitoring system which includes the assessment of relevant medical and psychological information in accordance with national law, and which may be on a continuous or non-continuous basis. So the Parliament text on those assessments is what we are pushing for. And regarding the European Firearms Pass, the Council has agreed to include Category A firearms in the European Firearms Pass when the holders have authorisations for them. And this will improve the implementation of the pass for those many categories that need those specialist authorisations. We are all dedicating significant time towards filing a text which works for legal holders of firearms and also addresses those loopholes and inconsistencies which existed in the past. I hope that is clear. I know that I, for one, have received an awful lot of information from people who have received unclear or misleading information. That is the situation. Thank you. Anna Mansfield.
Thank you very much, Vicky, for the excellent work you have done. And I think that we're really getting very close. The EPP group, since the beginning, has wanted to speed up these negotiations. As the Council position and the Parliament position were very close, and we would like to finish, and we see the possibility to finish within the Slovak presidency. Finally, the Commission is going from a principal position to a position that is looking for implementable legislation, and we are calling on the Council to please come to the negotiating table with some margin of manoeuvre to negotiate and not to have to go back to the Member States all the time to ask for any step, because we are at the final stage and we need to move forward also from the Council. Thank you.
Vážená paní zpravodajko.
I shall be speaking Czech. Thank you for the summary of the information. Thank you for your excellent work that you dedicated to this draft directive. But I think that we should look in the mirror, look clearly at the situation after more than a year of negotiations. I think that we're still at the beginning. Even after 13 long months of negotiations, the Commission has not clearly enlightened us, or has not given the reasons for this proposal, has not referred to any facts. In all the meetings that we had here at the Parliament, it is clear that the proposal of the Commission, but also of the Council, is not sufficiently thought through and is not based on empirical facts. I absolutely agree, and this is a fundamental position of our group, that we do need to ensure security in Europe, but we cannot, without justification, ban legally held weapons. The original aim of the directive, the fight against terrorism and against the illegal market in arms, has disappeared from the proposal. And I think that this is an absolute failure, that the European Commission should have adopted common rules for the deactivation of weapons to stop their sale on the black market, and has only come up with the proposal after 7 long years. The regulation is of such a poor quality that now has to be reworked again. It is beyond my comprehension that such fundamental issues are debated without an impact study. We have an agreement, an institutional agreement with the Commission, that all important legislative and non-legislative initiatives will be accompanied by impact assessment. The effort to ban some legally held weapons probably is not regarded as important. But I think this is crucial. We are infringing personal freedoms of people who have never done anything illegal, and they do comply with the strict legal criteria. I don't think that we are sufficiently reflecting the real life and what the impact will be on the lives of citizens. We are under great political pressure, and here I would like to say, on behalf of our political group, that we want to resist this pressure. We want legislation that will be of good quality and correct, and that it won't be speedily adopted. So we are not under pressure to finish this negotiation until the end of this year. And we should also listen to the experts. We cannot justify not listening to them. The public consultation that was finalized on the 1st of February shows that 28,000 citizens from the EU has appealed to the Commission and have submitted their comments. So can the Commission tell us what they have, how they process these comments? Why were they not reflected in this proposal? What is the point of such consultations if we cannot reflect them properly? People do not understand what we want, and it will be difficult to explain to them that in the name of the fight against terrorism that will limit and restrict their freedoms. Thank you.
Thank you, Dieter, for your point. May I, however, repeat that I am giving an update on the trialogue position. There is agreement to ensure that legal owners can continue to hold their firearms. There is an agreement in the Council's text under Article 7.4, as you're aware, to say that Member States will have the ability to make sure that those who legally held firearms before can continue to do so. So suggesting that we are banning legally held firearms today is not in accordance with the update that I have just given in trialogue. If you have concerns about the way that that is drafted, then let's get the drafting looked at. But it's not reasonable to say that this is a banning the legally held firearms of today, because there is agreement from both the Parliament and the Commission, and the Council, on grandfathering. So I just think we need to be very careful about how this is being explained, and the point of this is to give the explanation outside the room to people who are listening this, of which there are many. Yeah. We do need to get the language right, and I completely agree with you that there should have been impact assessments, but there is no mandate in this room to have no proposal. We tried that. We put to this committee the suggestion of rejecting the entire proposal, and members did not vote for it. Members wanted to work on trying to get a better text, and that is what we're doing. Jussi.
Thank you, Vicky. The Council text is, of course, less bad than the original Commission proposal, but it is still far from acceptable. In particular, this concerns the recategorization of semi-automatic rifles and the proposed maximum magazine capacities. Both measures would cause a lot of damage to legitimate gun owners, whereas neither of them would affect criminals and terrorists in any way, as has been made clear during the process. The governments of certain member states are very keen to introduce draconian UK-style gun laws, but they cannot do that at national level because they are afraid of their voters. Therefore, they want the European Union to do the dirty work for them. We, however, are supposed to represent the citizens and to defend their rights and liberties, as well as the principles of good lawmaking. It is not good lawmaking to first ban something and then create an extensive list of exceptions from that prohibition. It is not good lawmaking to create unenforceable and unimplementable rules. If we take seriously ourselves and this institution, we should not cave in and accept a compromise that is based on false assumptions and fabricated data. I will most certainly vote against any such outcome. We are not in a hurry. The end of the Slovak presidency should not be seen as a deadline. Thank you.
Thank you. May I repeat again that the Parliament is demanding our key positions are met. We put to this committee various different language options, and this committee chose to go with an option which says that high capacity certain semi-automatic firearms, when fitted with high-capacity magazines, would be treated as Category A prohibited firearms. We also put in place restrictions on acquisition of magazines, not prohibition on magazines, but restrictions on acquisitions. The Parliament is continuing to press that case, you see. It may not have been the case you wanted, but it was the majority of the vote in this Parliament, and it is clearly a much more workable position. What we are doing, and we're adamant, is that the exemptions for sports shooters need to work. Okay. And so that making sure that they work is a key part of this. Yeah. Virginie.
Merci Vicky pour aller dans le sens.
Thank you, Vicky. Well, along the lines that you mentioned, I'm surprised to see that we're questioning the negotiating mandate as it was voted in this committee. This responds to clearly identified needs. There is a majority for us to defend our positions during trilogues, which was adopted by majority in this committee.
Maria Grappini.
Mulțumesc, Vicky.
Thank you very much, Vicky. I'm glad that we have the opportunity to talk about this because, indeed, we need to find a middle ground here. The topic is highly sensitive. We've all received thousands of messages before and after, and I believe we can come up with a balanced report. I did come up with quite a few amendments because I was interested in seeing what we can do about the access of 16-year-olds to such weapons. In the initial version, it was said that under parental supervision, 16-year-olds would be allowed to have access to weapons, which is very strange as an idea to me. And then every member state had different things to say about the period covered by the validity period of a medical check. And once again, we're not talking about people who build bombs in their backyard. We're talking about legitimate owners, and then, but it wasn't very clear if a weapon is stolen, because somebody who's mentally unbalanced can steal a weapon from somebody who's a legitimate owner and perfectly healthy, but then they go to a pub and shoot everybody there. So these are things that we need to talk about. One extreme would be to say that nothing needs to be checked because they have a license, but at the same time, in our member states, we do not want to circulate the idea that nobody will be allowed to have weapons anymore, and the people who indulge in this hobby will have to turn them in. Now, we have the opportunity now to make up for past wrongs, but I believe there are quite a few important things. The 16-year-olds, the idea of the medical certificate, and of the validity of this medical certificate, because you could be healthy at one point, but then later on in life you develop some problems, and then of course harmonization. If things are different between one country and another, you cross the border with a permit that's valid in your country but might be no longer valid in another country, that could cause problems.
Suggest a number of amendments. They are not all, and many of them are not, in the text that was adopted by this committee. And the Parliament in our negotiating team are sticking to the text that was negotiated by the committee. I've told you and given an update on the areas where the Council and the Commission are pressing for some differences, but we are sticking to the amendments that are in our committee. This directive relates to the control and acquisition and possession of legally owned firearms. Stealing somebody else's property is against the law, okay? That is illegal. That is not part of this directive. I'm going to go to Mr. Popsil, but first of all I'm going to welcome the visitors group who've just arrived from Baden-Württemberg. Welcome. brought here by Evelyn Gephardt. Thank you very much. You're about to hear her speak about the firearms legislation. I'm going to go to Mr. Popsil first and then back to Evelyn.
Děkuji pěkně, paní předsedkyně.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't want to come back to the general debate because you know what I think about this regulation. I am against, and I think that only the deactivation should be regulated on a European level. But one comment to what you said about the level of negotiation. In the Czech Republic, I participated in several expert debates with lawyers, not with the holders of guns. And there was one question that emerged from that. If the current arms owners can keep their weapons, their arms, if the member states can allow that, then the lawyers say that in this case, in future, some categories of arms cannot be acquired, then we have two categories of citizens, ones that hold the arms for some time and can keep them, and others who want to buy them but cannot buy them anymore. So this is what I want to tell you. This is a great warning from the experts that this legal way can lead to the split onto two categories of citizens. Just a comment in the framework of this debate. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could just address the question that you've raised, there always have been certain exemptions that are permitted to give to Category A. There is, as I've said again in my update on the debates, there is agreement between the Council and the Parliament to ensure that existing legal owners can continue to own their existing firearms. Okay? And then, as I said, the EP is also pressing for an agreement for those firearms to be able to be inherited or transferred or sold to people who have those exemptions too. And that is the proposal that went through this committee by majority. I just thought it's worth going back again on the point that Mr. Halla-aho reached about the proposition that the Parliament take, that it's certain semi-automatic firearms, when fitted with high-capacity magazines, are the ones that are then in Category A7. If one does not take that approach, it creates even greater uncertainty. And to pick up on what Madam Sharon Sova said, there are many people outside this room, experts, who have been extremely helpful in trying to make sure that our language is implementable. It's challenging, but we are defending the rights of legal owners to make sure that existing legal owners can continue to hold their firearms with the adequate authorisations and permissions. Okay? Evelyn Gephardt.
Ja, liebe Vicky, vielen Thank you very much, Vicky, for that information. I think there's been a lot of misinformation over the internet in terms of what's being done in this sector, and that's why it's so important to get this detailed information from you as to what exactly happening. So thank you very much for that, and thank you as well. I mean, you know that I wasn't exactly fully satisfied with what the committee came up with for Category A weapons, but still, I thank you for following what the majority is in Parliament. That's democracy, after all. That was my first remark. And then secondly, of course, it's standard practice that there are some weapons out there that we'd like to see completely got rid of, but unfortunately that's not going to ever be the case. I recently talked to some people, and they told me that we need to take stock of the situation. Public prosecutors' offices have been telling me that as well. And they tell me that we've got to make a list of all these weapons, because the risk is that some legal ones will be pushed into illegality. We've always got to think about the implications. However, at some point, there should be a time frame for certain weapons not being placed on the market anymore. At some point, there's got to be a cut-off point. I think that's the right way of proceeding. And then deactivation. I think, Mrs. Ford, we should stick to our guns here, literally, that this legislation needs to ensure that there is no possibility for reactivation further down the line. Unfortunately, that is the case at the moment. Deactivated must mean exactly that. There can be no technical possibility afterwards for reactivation. I've been told that it is possible. And we need to ensure that that cannot ever happen. To me, that's very important. Thank you.
It is completely clear that a deactivated firearm should be deactivated to the stage that it is irreversibly inoperable. Irreversibly inoperable. There were standards in some member states that ensured that in the past, and it is important in the view of the Parliament that those firearms should continue to be recognised as irreversibly inoperable, because it is not possible to re-deactivate a firearm that has been deactivated already in many cases. You can't drill a hole in a hole, as it were. Okay? This is why we're working with the Commission to find such a proposal. The single European standard on deactivation that came in place in April this year to ensure that deactivations do happen to that irreversibly inoperable standard has had some issues in implementation that some people, experts, are concerned may actually make it less good, which is why the working groups have been going through that in detail and why we are absolutely insisting that that needs to be resolved and completed by very early in 2017. I'm going to go to Ivan Stefanich and then I'm going to stop the discussion. Ivan Stefanich.
Thank you very much, Vicky. And really, I do appreciate your work on this file. We know that this is a really pretty sensitive issue, and also I'm on the position to keep the rights of legal owners, because I do believe that to affect them, it is not the best way to fight against terrorism. So we have to fight against illegal owners and illegal issues, but not against legal ones. I was encouraged by your report, but I have a question because you mentioned that there is the pressure to finish this file by the Slovak presidency, and next trialogue is scheduled for December 5th. So my question is if you expect that this file will be finalized, because the position of IMCO was very clear, and I think it was very good position after initial proposal from the European Commission. So I'd like to see the result, and soon the result would be also good and tangible result for citizens, that we can fight for their rights. Thank you.
I too would like to see a result. I too would like to see us complete this on Monday night. That does mean that the Council is going to need to have to move on some of these issues towards the Parliament's text. But in terms of the broad agreement on ensuring that the sports shooters exemption works, that legal owners can continue to own their legal firearms should the member state wish to continue to give that permission, that the deactivation needs to be done to that standard that is irreversibly inoperable but also respects the rights of existing holders. Those broad principles have been established. We need to get them in the text. And we need to get them in the text. But we are not going to move back to the Commission's language on resembling. Okay, the Parliament has been very clear that and there is no mandate in this committee to accept prohibiting items based on what they look like and not what they are. So that is not a position, not a direction that the negotiating team is prepared to go in. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand over the floor, I think, to Evelyn. Is that correct? The next item on